Hello and welcome to the 17th episode of the Pirate Rugby Pod. We have now passed 365 YouTube subscribers and our next stop is 400. Thank you to everyone for tuning in. If you like what we do, please like, share and subscribe.
A reminder that you can find us on Twitter and sign up for our free Substack. The links for both are in the description box below. If you follow us, you'll get updates every time we drop a new piece of content, whether that be a podcast, a video, or a long form article. Stay tuned this week for potentially a item looking at the history of the Welsh regions and, believe it or not, a time where we were actually quite good. So a bit of a history lesson for some people who are slightly newer to the URC there. And then, of course, we always get all the Friday breakfast show, which comes out on Friday mornings. It's a mini pod, which is perfect for your Friday morning commute. And you get Ender's TV guide as well, which is absolutely a vital piece of rugby paraphernalia. Rugby is part of your rugby lifestyle. You need it, trust me. Anyway, let's get on to welcoming our wonderful guest. And it's our first ever returning guest. It is Jade from Bloemfontein. Jade, how are you?
All good, guys. Thanks for having me again. Must have done something good in the last time that I was here, but thanks for having me again. Not so good from a South African perspective in the URC, but yeah.
Well, I think we need to get an Italian on next weekend to fully complete the set. Oh no, then we'd have to get a Scottish person. Oh, well.
We need subscribers.
We do have a couple of very lovely Scottish listeners who I like a lot. So I'm sorry, guys, I take it back. Anyway,
right, so we'll move on to the. Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to start off, Hugh?
Okay, yeah. So my moment of the week. So I'm collecting English rugby journalists who have had a go at me on Twitter. I've had a couple of podcast hosts. I've had a couple of Telegraph journalists, and this week I got none other than Brian Moore, ex-England hooker, presenter. So myself and friend of the show, Cian, aka Rugby Kino, were having a bit of chat about the news that because English rugby clubs are going down to one marquee player, Saracens might not be able to afford to keep Maro Itoje, and Itoje might therefore go to France. And we were talking about the implications that might have for England selection rules, and I said, oh, that might mean that we get like an Itoje law along the lines of the Gittos law that Australia had. And lo and behold, 24 hours later, Brian Moore wrote a piece saying we need a law that allows us to pick Itoje if he goes to France. And I kind of quote tweeted it back to Key, and it's like, hey, see, look, someone agrees with me. Brian Moore took exception to this and took time out of his busy day to explain to me how he wasn't talking just about Maro Itoje, he was talking about all English players and the underlying problems in English rugby, blah, blah, blah. I don't know. I guess these guys are used to people having a go at them on Twitter, but it was a bit ironic that he was having a go at me for not reading his article properly when it was in fact him who had not read our Twitter conversation properly. So, you know, next time, Brian. Oh well, it's nice to sort of meet you, I guess. Anyway, how about you, mate? What did you get up to this week?
For me, I shared a clip on it on my Twitter just of the recently retired Keith Earls. Just thought he did a brilliant interview on a show that's broadcast in Ireland, RT1, called The Late Late Show. It's like a talk show host. And yeah, he just gave a very honest interview. And Keith Earls is from an area in Ireland that's not very well off. It's quite the opposite, really. And there's a narrative in Ireland that, you know, it's rugby is quite an elitist sport. So I think it was lovely just to see a player from that sort of background in Ireland make it and do so well. And he's outspoken on issues like mental health and amongst other things. He does a lot of charity work. So he's just a role model, really. And I just thought it was a great interview. And we just need more of that. We need more former players, existing players coming out and expressing themselves and expressing their opinions and giving those kind of in-depth interviews where they get into real issues and things. So I just thought it was good, honest interview, good content. Spoke about how he was never supposed to make it because of where he was from and how he has made it, and how he's so grateful now that he has this business opportunity after finishing up his rugby work, and how he still enjoys a lot of charity work. So he's just to me a bit of a role model. So I just thought it was a great clip that went out of him. What about yourself, Jade?
I couldn't give actually a moment of the week from South African perspective in URC. It's been relatively dull at the moment, but I think I'll stay in the Southern Hemisphere and give it to Dan Herbert, the new chief of the Australian Rugby, being voted in over the weekend. I think it's a positive move for Australia. I always believe that, we need a strong Australian rugby team, especially with the Lions still up and coming and the World Cup in 2027. So, for me, Dan Herbert, the new CEO of Australia Rugby, I think they've got a good team there now. And, it's Joe Roff, Paul Ward, Dan Herbert, a few other guys there. But now it's just to get, the right coaches in and, not disappointing anybody on name, getting the right guys in and really having that open heart surgery that Australia Rugby needed for a while.
Yeah. And we haven't spoken really properly since, Scoop finished up doing his pods for a while, but it's definitely where we looked at and we all, I think, questioned, why Jones was brought in that close to the World Cup. And we all really, I think most of us came to the conclusion that the real issue was down to that decision. It wasn't necessarily Jones' fault. It was the decision to sack Rennie and bring in Jones that close to the World Cup. And now look where they are, pretty much in crisis mode, and they've replaced the person who made that decision. But as you said, let's focus on the positives. Hopefully, Australia will be able to build now toward the Great Lines Tour, the World Cup, and then the Women's World Cup a couple of years after that as well. Any thoughts, you?
No, agreed. I guess once the Jones thing had gone wrong, he had to fall on his sword, really, didn't he? I mean, he tried to fight it off by all accounts. There's a few conflicting reports going around about whether he was gone or no, he wasn't gone, etc. But the six heads of the union in Australia clearly said, your time is done, mate. So yeah, best of luck to the new guy. He's got a big old mess to clear up, so best of luck to him, like I say.
So let's move on to our favorite topic, which is the URC. And Jade, I think one of the reasons you and I wanted to get you on was just to get maybe a South African perspective on South African teams' performances so far this season. We currently have none in the top six, but for me anyway, I think there's nothing really to worry about here. They've been on tour, and we know they've got some great players coming back. I think it's an extended tour this year. I think they go on 4 game tours as opposed to 3, so obviously there's a lot more pressure on them. What's your take on the situation?
Yeah, the tours reminded me of, the old Super Rugby days where they would go 2 in Australia, 2 in New Zealand, or, 1 Jaguares or wherever. It is a long tour for some of them. But for me, I think we need to be a little bit more patient with South African teams because it's not like the last time they played URC, sorry, where after they won the last World Cup, guys, the bulk of the team from 2019 World Cup was basically from the Stormers, and there were so many South Africans playing the rugby in South Africa. Compared to this time, if you look at the 35-man squad, the guys coming back after the World Cup to South Africa, there's only about 13 or 14 of them. So that means that 21 of those players are playing overseas. Now, it's exciting for South Africa because you're looking at younger guys who get the opportunity. And, but also there's bad news that guys like Bongi Mbonambi is out for the season. So the Sharks is really relatively, out of the depth in terms of the hooker. It's exciting that, there is young guys who see new faces come through. But also look at it this way. There's quite a lot of young, talented South Africans that left South African shore a few seasons ago as playing the trade in Europe. And Exodus is actually more than what it was a few years ago. So we need to adapt. I'm not saying there isn't talent, but I'm thinking a few of these guys just need more time to adapt. If you're looking at a team like the Lions, who for me has been, financially they've been struggling. They're struggling to keep a hold of their main players. Every year there's a lot of Lions players that leave the franchise. What they're doing, I still think, although they're not winning all of their games, but they're punching above their weight because they're not putting up bad performances. Look at the weekend. They ran Austin close, away from home. If you're looking at guys like Anisani, what's in Tamakani, the stated prop, 158 kilograms. Looking at Nohamba. Yeah, you look Nohamba, Frankie Horn. Those guys are future, the future of SA Rugby, most probably. So for the Lions, they got a good crop of players, but they do not have depth. So that's we don't know how long the season's going to go on for them before they might just fall apart. But in saying so, I think they might have come together more. Going on tour so early, the squad could have gelled, and the continuity would be in that squad. The other thing, and I know a lot of guys are dying to ask what's happening at the Sharks. I don't know, should we give them time? Are the Sharks, just a bunch of individuals put together in a franchise? Is John Plumtree the man? I would answer the question of the Sharks after 2 or 3 more weeks. I think they need a win, and from that win, they'll build confidence.
Good news, they've got the Dragons next.
They got the Dragons next year, but I really expect them to beat Connacht. This past weekend, I expect them to beat them. For me, the Sharks, I just think has been coming on, since the new ownership. The Sharks hasn't been performing to the standard, and the quality of players they brought in, they're not been performing. I still believe that up front they do need a number 8. I think they need an 8 in a Jasper Visa quality, caliber, or even the Rose caliber, because Noche and Pepsi Butales is similar players. But I do think that the Sharks is maybe, filled with individuals that they need to iron out. Plumtree might be the man to get that, because he is a old school type coach. Let's give him some time. Neil Powell's first full season as director of rugby as well, so let's see what he does. But in saying so, I don't think we should panic with the South African teams. I think once the European teams come to South Africa in this blistering heat, I know in Central South Africa, we're reaching 34, 35 degrees Celsius here, so it's going to be difficult for them to play in these conditions. I think they might just get some confidence and start to build. Towing first up, it's been difficult, but I still think they need time. The last point that I wanted to touch on the South African teams is that the team for me, the 2 teams to me to watch in Africa would be the Stormers and the Bulls, because the continuity has been there. Okay, the Stormers did lose Kitsoff and a few guys as well, but they're a champion team, and once they get Lebok and they get Dion Fourie and they get Damien Willems back again, they'll kick on. And the Bulls, for me, the recruitment this year has been brilliant, absolutely brilliant. I also have a soft spot for the Bulls this season, because of the way they recruited, the way they boosted their academy. So if I give you a background into South Africa, we have great college in South Africa in Bloemfontein. It's one of the top schools in the world, and producing guys like Bismarck du Plessis, Luan Pinar, all of those guys come from there. Multiple South Africans come from the school. And the Bulls are tapping into their best players every year, going to the Bulls Academy, because the head of development, Wessel du Plessis, he was the first team coach at Grey. So, he's got that pool and he's getting those best players in there. So you will see a lot of new faces when the Bulls come through. There's a lot of quality guys coming through at the Bulls. And they've got guys like Wally Leroux, Nazim Kar, those guys coming from Europe back that, the younger guys can feed off of. I think they are the South African 4 teams, they're in the best spot at the moment. It's the Bulls.
I agree. I love watching the Bulls play. Even when we'll touch on how they got on the weekend later, but even in defeat, I thought they were fantastic and a little bit unlucky. I'm just wondering whether Plumtree at the Sharks, it might be a little bit reminiscent of Gatland at the Chiefs. Maybe a new guy's come in and he's tried to change too much, maybe in one go.
Could be. It could be. Also could be, Plum has been, when last did he actually roll up his sleeves and coach? He's been a part of assistant coach, and in a New Zealand franchise where the players has been the same. At the Canes, he had the similar players the past 3 or 4 years. He could implement his game plan for a long time. And then he went into the All Black setup where, at international rugby, I don't think he was an out-and-out coach, like Jason Ryan is, for example. So I think he long last had that we had to go out and coach and look at faults, look at, where players need to improve, the hard yards those players need to put in at that level. I do also believe that the Sharks are short of quality wingers. I think that, Apie Deante came back from a ban now. But I mean, I still believe, okay, Werner Kok is decent at this level. But if looking at the other unions, what maybe the Bulls and the Stormers have out wide in terms of finishers, in terms of Zas and Kanan Moody and Gertley Arendse, there's a big gap, between that. So I think the Sharks, if I was Plumtree, I would be brave. I would start bringing, is it John Smith, Franco Smith's son, Fly-off. I'll start bringing him closer in. He was an under-20 squad last year, quality Fly-off. Start looking at reshaping them a little bit. And yeah, once Ox gets back in the team, once Nkok gets fit, Eben gets fit, you know, then he has a back for those guys to work from. But for me, I think sometimes they lack creativity. That's my main concern with the Sharks. They lack a lot of creativity at the moment. But if you bring in Jaden Hendrickse in and you bring in Grant Williams in, all of those guys back, and starts to fire again, then you'll see. But I still believe that I think out wide, there may be a quality wing short.
That's very interesting. And just touching on the lines again, can you explain kind of what's going on just in terms of the attendance figures? Because whenever, like, they were quite close. Was it 2017? Did they win Super Rugby, or they made it to the final?
They got to three
They-
finals.
I was just-
3 years in a row, yeah,
Yeah.
got to the final.
And I just
Got to the
remember
final.
seeing massive crowds, and I just always get quite surprised. Like the other teams, South African teams, seem to pull in decent crowds, you know, on a consistent basis. But the Lions just, is it that the people haven't kind of bought into it in that area, or is it the performances on the pitch, or is it more complicated and it's just a combination of all those things?
It is Park, strange enough, when they host Park test matches, you know, they tend to get a full crowd. But where Ellis Park is situated at the moment, it's in a high crime zone in Johannesburg. So it's close to Hillbrow in Johannesburg. So that's the main safety feature, I think, for Ellis Park.
Yeah.
You know?
Someone else
when
was
the
telling me
Lions,
that as well, was that
when
it's
the
in a
Lions,
really dodgy area.
yes, in the Dodgers, to get into the ground and to get out of the ground at night, you know, you got to ride through that side of Johannesburg, and it's, some people think it's not safe, you know, and it's not everybody's cup of tea. For example, Loftus and the Cape Town Stadium and Kings Park, which is more central in those areas and much more easy to get to and get out of. So that's the main issue there. And the other thing is the team's not winning. They're not winning. So if you win, you get bumps on seats. And a few years ago, when they were performing in Super Rugby, that is the team, they stuck together. They got a few of those guys got relegated from Super Rugby together. They came up, got promotion together again, and through John Mitchell, Carlos Spencer, Swayze the Brain, they moved up and they made 3 finals in a row, you know, because they won the Currie Cup and then they just pushed on like that. So I think for now, the biggest challenge for them is to keep some of these players like Nohamba, like Frankie Warren, like Ruan Venter. I think Henko van Wyk, the outside centers, also want to watch out for, is to keep those guys. But every year you're seeing the other unions step into the Lions and buying a few players from them, and then they need to start from scratch again, you know. So
Yeah.
especially the Sharks, they tend to, you know, to target a lot of the Lions players. So that's the problem. I think financially they're struggling, and they're also not getting an income. They're not getting bumps on seats. So let's
Yeah.
see what happens when South Africa do get the dividends with, you know, the profit share with, or the shares with the URC in a few years' time, how that money goes into that union. Because the president of South African Rugby, Mark Alexander, is a Lions boy. You know, he's from that region. So I think he has some plan for the union, you know.
Yeah. So in terms of funding, are they mainly just relying on certain backers and then the union, or because we all know about the Sharks and and the Bulls and the Stormers now, we know they've new investments, so that, you know, people willing to put in money and not get the return. Do the Lions just simply not really have that kind of backer to put money in?
They don't. They're struggling. They're struggling. You know, to keep their players. They are struggling. You know, that's the main problem. I mean, if you look at what the Stormers did 2-3 years ago, if you're looking at the way sport is in general, that has to be up there with one of the greatest those sporting stories now in our modern era, where a team that was almost bankrupt won the URC, and they did it basically through the Moneyball. The Moneyball formula, you know, it was a Moneyball formula that they performed, and they won URC. So the Lions can follow something similar, but they did not have that the Stormers have. But the Stormers have is they have a lot of guys from that region that went to school in that region, you know, that's originally from the Cape Town, Boland, you know, area, Western Cape area, that's playing for the Stormers, that will go back to the Stormers and play for them. The Lions is a little bit different, you know, in terms of the scouting and everything. So yeah, they have a big challenge on their hands. So for now, I think it's just to keep above float, you know, try and survive, try and keep this team together, and wait for the money from SA Rugby to come in and help them.
Yeah, but to the point earlier, even with all those challenges, they're not crap. They're a
Yeah.
good rugby team, and they've been on tour for what feels like ages now, and they've been in every game that they've played. They haven't been hammered once, and I think they played some really nice stuff. They've got a good set piece, and it's the biggest cliche ever, but if you've got a good set piece in rugby, you're halfway there. I mean, so if I just may steal a question from Ender, so Scrummaging Fly Half has come to us on Twitter and asked, is it time to bring the Cheetahs back to the URC? What's your take on that?
Oh, I would love the Cheetahs to come back. I'd love, but not at the expense of the Lions, because the same thing is going to happen to the Cheetahs. The dead same thing is going to happen to the Cheetahs, where in terms of quality and depth. Okay, the Cheetahs won the Currie Cup last season, and they maybe on paper might have a better team than the Lions. I do not know. We not see them. This Lions team against the Currie Cup Cheetahs team. It's unfair to judge the two. But for me, I wouldn't entertain bringing the Cheetahs back at the expense of the Lions. I would rather try and get them into the competition as well, or try and maybe merge the two in, but it's not going to work because of Joburg is actually
merges.
Joburg is actually 4 hours away. A few guys even mentioned it, why don't the Lions and the Bulls merge? But you can't, because of historically, if you look at the Lions were actually the first Super 10 winners, South African winners, going way back 3 times, Super Rugby finalists, and now coming into the URC and merging them with the Bulls, who were always rivals. It's not going to work. So the African rugby has a problem of how to entertain the Cheetahs and how to get them into a competition, but I wouldn't do it at the expense of the Lions, because for me, the Lions always brings out a few gems. And I mean, you're looking at Nohamba, I mentioned, you're looking at a few guys in that squad that they can play.
Smith comes through them.
Kwagga Smith comes from there. There's quite a lot of big guys that come from the Lions, Elton Jantjies comes from there. So there's you have a big in terms of scouting, not in scouting, but in terms of players coming through. There's quite a lot of players that come from the Lions. But in terms of the history of South African rugby, I wouldn't just want to throw this franchise away, because if you are going to drop the Lions from URC and bring in the Cheetahs, I don't think the Lions have the character to bounce back from it. I don't think they have that. The Cheetahs at least has this. They have. How can I say, the Cheetahs have in the city of Bloemfontein, they have a lot of support. The Lions don't even have the support in Johannesburg anymore. So what's going to happen to the franchise if they do, get dropped from the URC?
Yeah. What about adding them in addition to adding them as an extra team because I think Scrummaging Fly's point was that, maybe there'd be less games that they'd have to play, the South African teams would have to play on tour and vice versa for the other teams. Do you think that would, or are we getting close to Super Rugby expansion territory here and we're having too many teams?
Yeah, I agree with I don't know. I must probably have to wash my tongue out after this, but I agree with Scrummaging Fly after that. I agree, to add them in. Like I said, try and get them in, but how are you going to make it work? Where the conferences look set with 4-4, 4 groups. Where are you going to get them in? Where are you going to get them in? So, yeah, logistics wise, I'm not sure. I don't think. Maybe Ireland has a capacity for another team, but I don't think Wales. Maybe Scotland has. Wales does. I don't think Italy has. So where are you going to get another team, to get through? And if you are going to approach the URC and say, well, let's try and get the Cheetahs in, I don't think they're really going to entertain the idea of, getting another team and in from South Africa when everybody else has 4, or, it's just not going to work out like that.
Yeah. And just touching on the Cheetahs, just in terms of funding, because I remember when they used to be in the Pro 16, I used to be kind of baffled about the kind of the small crowds again. But I was often just wondered, where are they getting the funding? Because it didn't seem to me like they were getting bumps on seats. Again, is it a financial backer? Is it Toyota? Is it, a combination of South African Union plus all the above? Or to me, they always seemed like a team that was maybe not financially there, or just hanging in there, or do they have a solid kind of financial backing?
I wouldn't say solid, depending on how you would rate solid financial backing. I wouldn't say in terms of where the Stormers are or the Bulls are. Therefore, they're well off of that. But Toyota is a big sponsor of them. But it's not as big. They still need to have these Toyota challenges. They still need to get Luckily with the Currie Cup, they tend to make the final a lot, and they get a full house, they get a Bok test match every 2 or 3 years, they get the Boks playing Bloemfontein. So, and also in terms of who they buy, okay, they did get Fransstein and the one Pienaar back, but I mean, all of the other players are signed from smaller unions in the Currie Cup, like from Griquas, from the Pumas, or some from the Leopards, from there, you know. So those guys, it doesn't cost them an arm in the leg for in terms of salaries to get those guys in, and that's been the Cheetahs' DNA. All the years, Cheetahs has always been, if you've seen, like when you had Vila Cup, you know, all of those guys coming through from the Cheetahs, there hasn't been the big name signings. They never made big name signings. They believe a lot in their development. And from there on, you know, there's always been a joke in South African rugby where in the past they say when the Sharks played against the Cheetahs in Bloemfontein, the Sharks players sleep at their parents' house because they're all from Bloemfontein and they're all from the Cheetahs. So that's always been the joke in South Africa. But yeah, it's the Cheetahs for me. They've always been, you know, in terms of looking at development, looking at getting guys and then selling them off. You know, then they move on to bigger clubs there. But like I explained to you now, the big problem in South African rugby is it's not that the talent is not there. It's just that there's a big exodus of younger players going overseas at a younger age. Where, if I could put it to you like this, if we have guys like Jasper Visser, you know, all of those guys under the age of 25 or 26 playing the trade in Europe, 10 years ago, that wouldn't be the case. You know, they'd be at the age of 28, 29, then they'd move on to Europe. In their peak, and in their prime, they would still be playing in South Africa. So, but now these guys are going from early age, they're moving. I don't blame them for moving. You know, they're going for financial reasons, but I mean, it's leaving a big gap. And we're seeing it maybe at the Cheetahs and the Lions.
Yeah. And Ruan Pienaar, he's signed on for another year, hasn't he?
No
Yeah, he's
way.
signed on
How old is he now?
He signed on. He will be 40 next year. He'll be 40.
Yeah. He's doing another season, isn't he?
Yeah, Fransstein is director of rugby at the Cheetahs now. Ruan Pienaar signed on for another season, yeah.
You love to see it.
Wow, amazing. I just want to ask a question just generally about the perception of the URC in South Africa. So I've been on a couple of podcasts talking about how, you know, in Wales, there's quite a very split opinion on the URC. And I was saying, well, the Irish and the South Africans seem to make it work. It feels like from the outside, the resistance of going from Super Rugby to the URC has been quite minimal. Are there people in South Africa who are saying, no, we should go back to Super Rugby? Or has it been quite, no, this works for us. This is better, or at least as good?
I think the South African public and the New Zealand public are both stubborn to admit that they miss each other in a competition. You know, they are very stubborn to admit that, you know, they do miss each other. I also, for one, if you speak to a lot of South Africans, it's only because I do follow in a lot of Welsh and Irish and Scottish rugby, because I follow you guys on Twitter and X, that I know of, you know, the younger guys coming through at your Leinster and your Ulsters and those guys. But if you ask a general guy in South Africa watching rugby, who is the fly off of Connacht, without reading the program, he would be able to tell you. That's just, you know, but if you had to ask him 5 seasons ago who's Hurricanes fly off or who is the Waratahs fly off, they'll be able to tell you. So that says something, you know, in terms of URC and the African public. I don't think that the competition, there's a difference in terms of the not attendance, but in terms of the South African public's interest, because I think the competition is also very long. I think a lot of South Africans also focus on this competition when it gets to the knockout stages. From there, you'll see that the crowds pick up in the competition. I don't know if it's the same with you guys, but I know in Europe, you used to follow it like you have season tickets and you saw there every game. It's quite different to the way we do it in South Africa. So yeah, that's one of the things. We know we tend to pick on to it in January, February, and then we really start to follow the URC because now it's the championship rounds and it's time to get in. The European competition is too early to tell. It's in the second season, so let's see how it goes. But in terms of the URC, I wouldn't say that there isn't really interest in South Africa. I would just say that in terms of the South African teams, we know who's playing, we know everybody, we know all the players. But in terms of the Welsh, especially the Welsh and the Scottish, not so much Scottish, but the Welsh and the Italians, there's also the guys don't know who the real opposition are. They don't know who the players are, don't know their background, as they would know when it was Super Rugby.
Yeah, and I suppose that's something that'll just take time. Like, this is only the third season of this rebrand and everything, so I think it's getting there, especially with the Storm, as you said. Like, close to bankruptcy and then winning the thing. Like, it's such a good story. So like, and you can see that the people of Cape Town have bought into the Stormers 100%, which is great to see. But from the outside, yeah, I definitely think that like South African team's been pretty. Like, I remember when the Cheetahs joined, and who was the other team?
Kings.
It didn't seem like there was much buy-in, especially in terms of attendance. But with the big four in now, it seems like they've really bought in, and so too of the fans. Maybe not everyone is the same extent as Super Rugby, but hopefully we'll get to that place as the league kind of develops and everything.
Definitely.
Which leads us on to probably our final question for yourself, Jade. Hugh did a brilliant piece recently on attendance figures, especially comparing the Premiership and the URC. But there were a couple of comments there about, ticket prices in South Africa maybe being the reason why a lot of the teams get such big crowds. I know we've had a lot of our conversation maybe on some of the weaker teams getting lower crowds, but obviously if you look at the Stormers, you look at the Bulls, the Sharks, sometimes you get really big crowds, and a lot of people suggest that it's because the prices are so cheap. But I think a lot of those people are speaking from a European perspective, where absolutely they'd be cheap, but from a South African perspective, they're normal prices. Would that be your take? And would our ticket prices normal there? Are they really cheap comparatively speaking, or is there just more interest in rugby?
Ticket prices, I wouldn't say it's cheap because our economy is, not that strong compared to your economy overseas. It does cost a lot to take your family out to a game, or going yourself to a game. The tickets is about what, $50 to $100 in South Africa. I think at Loftus as well, depending on the game. If it is a knockout competition, it is higher, and I think Cape Town Stadium is a little bit higher because there's a few. Stormers or Western Province Rugby Union is still renting the stadium out from the city of Cape Town. It's not like Newlands that was their stadium. It belonged to them. But I think in terms of tickets, I wouldn't say it's cheaper because you have to weigh up the two economies. For you guys, it looks like dirt cheap, but for us, it's still, it still takes out from us. We still need to get drinks, get refreshments. We're taking our family out. It's all of those as well that they can't place into consideration. I don't know what does a pint of beer cost at the stadium there, but with us, it's roughly about, if you go into a stadium, you're going to spend about $100, $100 for a 6-pack of beer, most probably, plus minus, if not less.
For a 6-pack? We don't do 6-packs over here. You can get a pint.
Do it. No, we get a per 6-pack. That's how it works, man.
I've just got the calculator up on Google. So according to Google, 100 South African rand is £4.28, which for 6 beers is cheap.
Yeah, plus minus, yeah. That's about that.
So I went to the Scarlets the other week, and a ticket cost me £33. Now, everyone's got different budgets. Some people will be listening to this thinking, oh my God, 33 quid. I can't afford that. Some people were thinking, only 33 quid, because compared to like football prices and things, that's quite cheap. So it's, when you're talking about the cost of things, I think it's completely on the individual. For some people go like, oh yeah, no bother. And some people are like, oh, maybe I'll save up. And that's just life.
Yeah, for £33 in South Africa, that would most probably what we would spend on your ticket at the game, because it'd be for the whole family and getting the snacks and everything. So yeah, we would spend most probably that at the game for all of our entertainment. Yeah, but it's difficult to say. It's because it's cheaper. Yeah, the economies differ. The cost of living is differs in South Africa and in the UK. So at least the budgets are more than welcome anytime if you feel it's cheap to come over and to enjoy the game. Yeah, you've been seeing there's a lot of empty tickets, empty seats, so you're more than welcome.
And just maybe in comparison, like, I'm not sure if you'd know this, but like in comparison maybe to cricket or to soccer, some other big sports in South Africa, like would those prices be kind of on par or less?
It's a big problem in South Africa at the moment. Demographically, soccer is seen as a traditionally black band sports in South Africa. So you don't really get a lot of, white people at soccer games, at football games in South Africa. But the derbies and stuff there's a lot of attendance, with the big teams in South Africa. There is a big attendance, but not packed as in Europe, but you do get, I think the attendance is I wouldn't say decent, but it's, we do get, we have our main stadium, our national stadium, South Africa, Soccer City is about a 90,000 seater, and when it's a derby day, it is sold out. Finals it is sold out. So, cricket, if the Proteas don't play, our domestic league, nobody really goes. So, it's just when our national team plays. So, yeah, I think in terms of the other sports, I think rugby is the best, advertised, might be the best supported domestically, bar the derby games in football. But yeah, it's the other sports is also struggling for attendance. Yeah.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
in terms of ticket price, like it's not because rugby is cheaper to go to. It's just more popular.
If that's
Again,
that's difficult to state because if you're looking at football, like I said, it's seen as it's more our Black South Africans that go and watch, and obviously if you are looking at who can afford a ticket and how much they're willing to pay for a ticket, so it is a little bit cheaper than to watch a rugby game. That's just how it is. We can't charge them or charge people. If I go in, after the team in Bloemfontein fell away a few years ago, but if I have to go and watch, we'll pay something like 50 or 20, if not $30 a ticket, but now you can't charge those supporters that much because a lot of the guys don't even have that money, so yeah, they can't charge them 200-300 rand to watch a game. You can't do that.
Yeah. I just found it interesting last year. I remember listening to an interview with John Dobson, and they were talking about selling, like they sold out the stadium obviously for the URC final, and they did sell quite a number of tickets at, I think it was 50 rand, and he said like that was a conscious decision. They could have charged more and still filled it, but they wanted to kind of get people from the local area in as well, which I thought was a really nice initiative. But again, as you're saying, like that's not necessarily really cheap over in South Africa. That's just, I thought that was so admirable to hear him say. And they didn't just go for a money grab. They got people in. They want the people of Cape Town from all backgrounds supporting them. So I thought that was brilliant by him. I don't know if other South African teams did it.
A few years ago, the Bulls had an initiative as well where I can't remember my scrumming flower was at the game. But they gave for every ticket you came in, they gave you a beer for free, something like that, and they limited to 1,000 people, or was it 10,000 people? I'm not sure, but they had something to get more people into Loftus, because the Bulls weren't doing that well, and Loftus wasn't packed like we know Loftus to be. But they had that initiative. There is a lot of those initiatives that they have. The Cape region, they love rugby. Let me tell you, Cape Town loves rugby. They club rugby in the Boland, in the Cape Town area. They get full houses. It's packed. The local dog is there. It's, I'm talking, this is what, if you're looking at your rugby, this is maybe tier 3, tier 4, tier 5 maybe. But in the Boland division, Cape Town division, they're getting about, I know Roses plays in Worcester, just down the road from Cape Town. They pack easily 5,000-6,000 people, packed into the stadium for their game when they play villages, So there's big support in Cape Town. They love their rugby. They know their rugby in Cape Town as well. So yeah, it's different to say they'll spend, and also the cost of living in Cape Town is also it's a little bit more pricey. To buy a house, and because Cape Town is is one of the tourist attractions in Africa, so that is kind of a little bit pricey there. But yeah, they love their rugby, they love their sport outside in Cape Town. Yeah, so it can work for them.
Great stuff.
Cool.
We moving on from do we move on to the results for the weekend in terms of the URC?
Yeah, let's do it, mate. Do you want to start us off with the Irish?
Yeah, sure. So I'll start off with my favorite province, which I don't care about. I've no shame in doing it. Yeah, Connacht. And we'll ask you for your thoughts on this, definitely, Jade, as well. They stole a win really against the Sharks. They won by a point. They didn't score for a large period of the game, and I just thought they really hung in there. JJ Hanrahan, as I kind of mentioned on a couple of pods ago, he's been a really good signing. And he kicked, that pressure kick to get the win. So I thought that was really impressive. But I think you obviously do have to focus as well on the Sharks, and they had like 2 or 3 kicks that they definitely should have made. So I do kind of get the sense that Connacht did steal it in the end, but it was still, I'm also still not overly surprised, especially with their performances to date. And it wasn't necessarily a Connacht's first team as well, but I thought they were brilliant to get the win. And it's an invaluable win. I think they needed something. They need something from the tour to South Africa, so I think that was a great win. But maybe just will we focus maybe a bit on the Sharks, Jade? Like, did you get a chance to see this game?
Yeah,
I
I
don't.
got to see it. Yeah, it's reminded me so much of the World Cup final in a bit where the Boks stole it at the end, like you'd say, where so at the end. But yeah, it's I think the Sharks for me have, like I said, they have maybe a little bit of identity crisis now, and the Plumtree needs to sort it out. But Connacht's props to them. I didn't expect them to win it. I thought even though Sharks, are in trouble, I thought they'd win it at Kings Park. They'd win it. That last scrum, getting the penalty in that last scrum was, crucial for them. I didn't expect them to walk over the Sharks' back like that, although Belam did play. But I mean, it's still, for me, I thought the Sharks would have enough up front because they don't have a bad back. But yeah, it's like I said, it's the Sharks need to dig deep now, and they need to, stick together and start to get a win. Once they get a win and they start to grind out the results, maybe you'll see a difference with those players coming back. But for Connacht, well done, I think. And the conditions at the end also, I think, suited Connacht at the end. It was typical, Durban, humid conditions, sticky conditions as well there as well. So yeah. I think you guys deserve the win.
And then I don't know, maybe moving on then to Munsters and Stormers. Did you get a chance to watch that game as well?
Yeah, so the Munster and Stormers game, I expected more from the game actually. I expected more from
in a
Munster.
classic.
Yeah,
Hose in
10-3.
the town it was.
I think it
Top
was somebody
14-esque.
Thurlow Peterson on Facebook on Twitter asked were they playing touch rugby. But yeah, it was, for me, I expected more from Munster, especially with the players they brought back in, Byrne and O'Malley and all of those guys coming in. I expected much more from them. But the Stormers look like they are, they got a unit that sticks together, and they're willing to grind out when chips are down. I don't know what you guys feel of the Stormers inside center Sasha Faran Ngomezulu. I really think he's gonna be a superstar in South African rugby, in world rugby. I think this guy he's the real deal. I saw him, a few years ago in under-20 in the championship. They played against, I think they played against all of the Northern Hemisphere teams. And South Africa actually won that tournament, and he was the star in that tournament. I think he's gonna be, he's gonna play big rugby one day. But yeah, in terms of the Stormers, they've got a good unit together. They know what to do. They know what Dobson's plan is, so they're not going to be easy to beat. No matter who they play, they know what to do. The other thing that I wanted to mention of Munster is that I was actually excited with Munster, and I thought, okay, Munster they made a few good acquisitions. They got, Ollie Jagger didn't play the weekend, but I think they got Ryan back to play the weekend, but they scrum capitulated against the Stormers. The Stormers, the score, the Stormers scrum. Yeah, and I really expected much more from Munster. I thought when I saw, okay, Munster made a few good acquisitions up front. They might just give Stormers, and I mean Stormers had didn't have Frans Malherbe or somebody like that in that squad. So yeah.
Yeah. I think, I'm glad you mentioned the centre. I know he had a quiet enough game against Munster, but he has been such a standout for me. Paul Williams as well on Twitter always goes on about I think he's one of his favourite players, and he just looks like
one
a
of
confident.
Paul Williams' centres of the week, but he likes his centres as Paul.
He does, but he just seems like a confident young player as well, and he's got a really good boot in him as well. Like, he's a really astute kicker as well.
He's astute. He's astute, yeah. And the thing that I like about him is he's got a rugby brain. He's got that. You can see this kid is well educated. He's got a rugby brain. He's like Ruan Pienaar was. It's just a rugby brain on him. He knows exactly what to do in certain situations. I won't say it on the spot, but I did make a comparison with him with the top two, the very top two fly-off that we did see in the world over the past two with DC and Johnny Wilkinson. And I said, this kid can be on their level if he's nurtured right. He can be, might not be better than him, he might be a little bit, might not be as good as them, but this kid is the real deal. Watch out for this kid in the future.
Yeah, I just touched on the Munster performance as well. I think it's important as well to mention just the conditions were extremely tough. And I thought Adogbo for Munster was really good in the second row. I think he could be looking at Irish caps pretty soon. He looks like a great player. And also Crowley as well, man of the match performance. He's probably going to be starting now in the Six Nations for Ireland. He's a really good player. So I just wanted to mention those few points as well. And Alex Nankivell, you've probably seen him a lot play, Jade. He's been signed from New Zealand. He's playing the centres. He is a fantastic ball player.
I called him the signing of the the window. I said I think I spoke to Kalen from there's a Monster supporter. I spoke to him and I said this guy will be, whenever he puts on the Chiefs jersey, he's been awesome. When he puts on the Tasman jersey in the NPC, he's been awesome. Yeah, but the one signing of the like of Monster that they made is the Ollie Jagger signing. I didn't expect him to leave New Zealand rugby. I thought that he would be in Razor's plans. Especially a few years ago, he turned down the call up to the Irish team when they were touring and they needed a prop. And he said, no, I think he is eligible to play for Ireland.
He is indeed, yeah, he's Irish qualified.
Yeah, he is. And I also thought that, if you look at the Crusaders team, he was the first name on that team sheet every time. He was Jason Ryan and Razor's man. So it was a big shock for me that he left New Zealand rugby and went to Ireland. I really thought he would stay and he would get a chance in the All Black setup. But New Zealand's loss and definitely Ireland's gain. He will play in the Six Nations for Ireland. Mark my words on this. He's good. He's good. Ollie Jagger's good.
I think he could be maybe only 28, maybe 29, and he's also signed a 3-year deal, which is a long-term deal these days. So I think that's a really good sign as well. But I think it's not good just for it is good, sorry, for Munster, but also for Ireland. I think I think you're dead right. We could see him in action as soon as or as early as the Six Nations, to be quite honest. Sorry.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to then just maybe touch on the Ulster Lions game. Did you get a chance to see that game as well?
Yeah, so because I was watching the Bulls game, so I actually, I saw the extended highlights of this game as well. Like I said, the Lions punched above their weight. In this, they really ran Ulster. I expected Ulster to be a blowout. Like the guys I mentioned, I think Nwamba will be knocking on the door for higher honors. I prefer him at 9, although he can slot in.
Yeah, he's playing on he does. Did he have any real experience at 10 before the last 2 games? I heard he didn't.
He did play the URC Cup game at 10. He did play a few games with Sharks at 10. But South Africa's coach, and he would suit the 7-1 split.
It feels like an epidemic of 10s disappearing at the moment, and everyone who's playing it at 10 these days isn't actually a 10. Like it's scrum halves and fullbacks playing at 10 these days.
Yeah, and he's got a good boot on him. He's got an educated boot on him. He was with Sharks, and I was surprised that the Sharks let him go. I really thought that the Sharks would keep him because he is a Shark from the Sharks from that region. But obviously the Sharks knew that they had Grant Williams and Jaden Hendricks coming through as well and allowed him to go. The other flower they had, Jordan Hendricks, Jaden's elder brother. I think he's elder than Jaden. He's not too bad. He's actually decent. He's actually decent. I always wonder when is he going to make the move to a bigger union. I want to see what he does with a better forwards pack, although the Lions forwards pack is not bad. But for me, in Tlabakane, the tighthead prop, 158 kilograms of him. I don't know how this guy do it. I don't know how long is he going to do it for the season, but he's actually one that I got my eye on him as well. He's been solid, and the number 8 as well, Franco and the outside centre Van Wyk. But Ulster for me, they're just one of those teams that they do nothing flashy. I don't know, you guys, you've always been in European rugby and seen it, but from my perspective on Ulster, they do nothing flashy. They're always there and thereabout, and if you open your eyes in the final or in the semi-final again, that's been Ulster for me. They do nothing flashy compared to the Monsters and the Leinsters. But yeah, it was a good result, the Lions. But not a good result, but I mean a good performance from the Lions on the day.
Yeah, I don't want to get into trouble, but I think it's been a long time since Ulster won anything, and I think that's a subject that they get teased for a bit by the other Irish provinces.
I just touch on the lines about one player I want to single out as well as Marcus Lowe, the centre. He is a baller. So I think he's a brilliant player.
Yeah, from the Sharks, from the Sharks as well. He's a solid bowler. The attention has always been on the other centre, the outside centre, Erko van Wyk, but he's been good. He's been good this season. All of them, they've become a unit, And I mean,
they have a
the
great
coaching
core of
staff
players there.
the coaching staff is not. It's not the A-list of coaches. Okay, Ricardo Lopeshaw was the box assistant coach, I think, under Peter de Villiers or Alistair Coetzee, one of the two. But I mean, it's not. If you're looking at what the other South African teams have, they have big name coaches, but they don't have that A-grade coaches. But I think they're getting the message through to the guys, and I think they're together. I really think the squad is together. I just don't think they have the depth to do it, week after week after week in this long tournament. That is the shame of this Lions team.
Yeah. And just touching on Ulster, I think, I wasn't really blown away by their performance. They got the job done. I wouldn't have been surprised if the Lions had snatched the victory at the end. I don't think they were too far away, as you said, Jade, as well. But a special shout out to Jake Flannery. I think he got some more, invaluable minutes under his belt. He came up from Munster and he didn't get many minutes at all last season, but this season they seem to be backing him a bit more. So it's good to see him develop, and he's still a young player. And also we saw Marty Moore come back from a long-term injury. And he came on. When he came on, he won a scrum penalty immediately. Now I know after that, this Ulster did struggle a bit at scrum time, but it was good to see him come back from an injury and win that penalty. But look, we've done a lot of talking ourselves. Maybe we should move on to some of the Welsh teams, should we? Hugh, do you want to take us through? I'll let you do maybe Leinster and your beloved Scarlets.
Yeah. So I've spoken about this on a couple of podcasts already, so I'm trying to think of something I haven't said. Look, Leinster, when you saw the team sheets put out, it was like, okay, we know how this is going to go, and it went the way we thought it was going to go. So Leinster's team had 4 World Rugby Team of the Year players in it, and that didn't include former Player of the Year Josh van der Flier, didn't include Six Nations Player of the Tournament Hugo Keenan, and the rest, And the Scarlets put out a weakened team because I think they were resting players for the derby with the Ospreys. And do you know what? We conceded 3 tries in the first 15 minutes, during which we had a man in the bin. And then we conceded 3 tries in the last 15 minutes, during which we had a man in the bin. And then there was a good 50 minutes to an hour in between, where it was kind of okay. And I was talking again to Cian, who was in the crowd at the RDS, and he was saying, like, no, Scarlets had us rattled there for a minute because they had the ball and we weren't scoring, and it kept going on and on and on. So it was kind of okay. It's difficult to convince people after you've just taken 50 points. Like, no, it was all right. Honestly, you do sound a bit daft, but I think we are seeing the Scarlets boys starting to develop this backing of the young team, the back row in particular of Ben Williams, Teddy Leatherbauer, who's been a sensation, has just come from university rugby and made his first ever start of professional rugby against Cardiff 3 weeks ago, and now he's playing against Leinster away against basically what is the Ireland's national side. And then Carwyn Tuipulotu, who's had a lot of hype for a long time based on his family tree, and he looks like the real deal. He ticks a lot of the boxes visually. He had by far his best game for the Scarlets against Leinster as well. His stats were through the roof. So in a low scoring cause from the Scarlets' point of view, there were some shining lights. Teddy Leatherbauer as well. Sorry, no, Charlie Titcombe, I should say, had to fly half as well. Also came from the same place as Leatherbauer came from, Loughborough University, and he had a good game. He showed some touches of class. So, live to fight another day, I think. Who else did we have? So I didn't catch too much of the Cardiff versus Zebra game because I was watching Edinburgh versus Bulls, which was a great game. We'll touch on it in a minute, but it was a really high quality match. But yeah, Cardiff got the draw. I think it's another one where Cardiff will look back on it at the end of the season and go, oh, do you know what? That wasn't so bad, really, because I think Zebra are going to get a few wins at home this season. And there was only one away victory in the URC this weekend, and it was Connacht at the Sharks. So I think you'll go, oh, actually, a draw away from home isn't the end of the world. And they are, again, a bit like the Scarlets, Cardiff are starting to come on. And I think Cardiff, compared to where we thought they might be with how difficult their summer was financially, I think that they are performing above where I thought they might be, which maybe just says I thought they were going to be really, really bad, but I think they've been okay. And then you had the derby between Ospreys and Dragons. Dragons have got a thing over the Ospreys at Rodney Parade. It's just one of those things. They've got the same thing over the Scarlets as well, where they just seem to be able to beat those two regional rivals. Ospreys were terrible in this game. They scored first, but then they did absolutely nothing for the rest of the game. They had a man sent off, Matt Prothero, with his stupid red cards, just absolutely like an Exocet missile at this guy in the head. It was just crazy. And then and then the Dragons you could tell they were low on confidence and they're not used to winning, but they just got there in the end. And the big thing for the Dragons was Kai Evans. So this guy has had a lot of stick in Wales because he's the son of Ieuan Evans, who was Wales's record try scorer for a period of time. And they're saying, oh, he's only getting an opportunity because of who his dad is. But he's not. He's a real deal. And I think because we need a new fullback with both Liam Williams and Lee Halfpenny going, I think Kai Evans is in a really good position to be the long-term successor to those, because he has got a lot to his game in terms of decision making. He's a goal kicker and he's a long-range goal kicker as well, and he knows how to hit a line and things. Of course, Cardiff fans will say that Cam Winnett will be that guy, and he's been equally impressive for Cardiff. For me, I think Kai Evans is just ahead, but really, whichever one of them gets the nod, I'll be happy because they're both great players. So yeah, so that's the Welsh teams. So who have we not talked about now? Should we just quickly touch a bit more on Edinburgh versus Bulls, because this was the game of the weekend for me. It was so fast and intense and played at such a high level. I was really impressed by the standard in this game, and it finished a slightly one-sided scoreline, maybe, but I don't think that was an accurate reflection of the game. I think the Bulls would have been well worth getting something out of this game. So, Jade, your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, listen, the Marcel Coetzee red card also, and then after that they got, I think it was Hanekom, they got a yellow card with a play after that. That really hurt them, the Bulls, but they did show character to get back and not just roll over. I was expecting a real thumping after that, and looking at the players that Edinburgh had on the field with Goosen and Van der Merwe and Kinghorn, them all played. So I really thought that Richie was outstanding also in that game. But for me, this Bulls team this season is something about them. I said, watch out as positive, because they can only get better. They're getting good players coming back. They're getting Caden Moody. I think he'll be good to go soon. Kurtley Arends, Phil Leroux comes in, and they've got experience as well. They've got Nazim Kaur on the bench. They've still got Marco van Staren coming in as well. They brought in Akka van der Merwe, and they got Groenewald, is it the Hoeke Groenewald? I think he's first in line to get a box cap against Ireland, because with Bongi and Marks both out, so I think he'll be, he's got the inside lane for the box jumper. Dweber's not doing himself any favors with his line out throwing with the Stormers, So I think, and also the good signing that they made is Volko Low, that coming back to the ball. He's putting up his hand, for box spot as well, because Koch and Frans Malherbe and Trevor are not, they on the wrong side of 30 as well. So he could be somebody that puts his hand up, and especially South Africa, where I think we're struggling with tight heads, but I think it's a world rugby thing now. With tight heads, it's been, there's a quality tight heads has been scarce in world rugby recently. But Volkolo is one to watch out for. But yeah, I think the Bulls got something. They got something this season. I just hope that Jake White doesn't just do the most Jake White thing, and just just gets his team down and out again. Because for me personally, I think it's his last chance this season under the Bulls as director of rugby to really win something. Because I think the Bulls owners is getting a little bit impatient with him, and with the caliber and the name that he does bring, we expected much more from the Bulls, because they have invested a lot in players, but it's been more misses than hits, they brought back Hugh Uploan and all of those guys, and it didn't really work. But I'm really impressed with him, with his style of play also. It's not that, I don't know if you've seen the Bulls play in Super Rugby back then. It's been one-dimensional, but they've been playing much better
They're
brand
great
of
to watch.
Great to watch now, yeah. So yeah, For me, the Bulls, definitely one I'm keeping a close eye on this season. I like who they have there. I like what they did so far. But yeah, red cards cost you in games. I mean, it's proven. So I don't know. I don't know. I think, next week there'll be another red card that we'll be moaning about and talking about. But yeah, just as long as there's a consistency for those kind of challenges, I'm fine with it,
Yeah, it's an interesting game next week. Connacht are away to the Bulls. So I think that'd be a game to watch. But yeah, I've been really impressed with the Bulls this season. I think that they're the real deal. It was kind of disappointing hearing Jake White though come out and maybe just complain a bit about the tour. Whereas if you look again, I know I keep going on about it, but John, Dobson's. I love when he interviews because he's so honest. But he's like himself and the Stormers just embrace tours. And he talks very passionately about it. Like they make the most of it, and you could see those clips from the Stormers players interacting with the local kids as well, playing rugby, like involved in a training session. Like that's what you want. It is what it is, and he's just embracing it. And they're going for it, and they aren't getting the results yet. But we all know that the Stormers have had poor starts to seasons before, but then they've gone on and won the bloody thing. So yeah, just more positivity maybe from Jake White from time to time would be.
Yeah, but Jake White should be used to it because I mean it's not something new. It's been they've been used to the 4-game tour from Super Rugby, and last year they complained about the turnaround time of flights. I think they had to board a flight to Qatar and then get over to Europe. They had to go on that lane, so that was also a factor. I remember when the Sharks played, was it Toulouse that they played, and they arrived like 3 days before that the quarterfinal, or was it the last 16? They arrived in France. So I mean, you do look at that factor as well, where they are going to complain about it. I'm for tours. I think that brings the squad together, the young guys. They it would be nice if the box could also go with them, and maybe next year, the box, there's a few more senior box going with him on tour, where the younger guys can see how Eben Itzebeth, what he does, how he preps himself mentally, not just what he eats and stuff, how he eats before the night before a game and all of that stuff, because that's what you build, and that's how you as a younger player, there's those moments that you take on in your career, and you pick up from the senior pros, and that's what you get on tour.
Yeah. Any other games we should speak of from the weekend?
I don't think we've just mentioned, was it Glasgow Benetton? So Benetton picked up the defeat there. It's a good result for Glasgow. Glasgow are going to be right in the mix at the top. I didn't think I managed to catch too much of this game, but obviously the Benetton hype train is on pause for a week until hopefully next week when they get back on it. But yeah, like I said, Glasgow I think are earning a lot of people's respect this season, and I think they're going to be right in the mix come the end of the season.
Yeah. And look, and from Italian perspective again, like it was great for me to see Zebra. I know they didn't get the win, but they got a draw. I know a lot of Cardiff fans aren't happy with a lot of the decisions, but having said that as well, Zebra missed like at least 4 kicks and goal. They missed 3 penalties. That's 9 points in the first half, and then they missed a conversion. So Zebra are right in there, and I think they've already, Kalon pointed this out on Twitter, they've surpassed their point tally for the entire last season in 5 games so far this season. So that's a positive sign. And we look at Benetton, like especially in the World Cup, weren't we all on Scoop Pod complaining about Italian rugby, blah blah blah, this and that. But look at the club teams now getting some points under their belts. So I think they're building nicely. And yeah, for me, this season's overall has been so competitive. Once the South African teams get back on home soil, I think they'll start getting some wins as well.
Right. Shall we wrap up some of the more obscure stuff then?
Sounds good.
Okay, so I'll start off with La Vila Cup, I assume it's pronounced. Sorry, Spanish people. So USA defeated Spain in the final of that. So this was the second weekend, so second of 2 weekends of this. USA defeated Spain quite heavily. I think it was something like 42-15, something like that. So that it was quite interesting. The interesting thing about this tournament was it gave us a really good idea of where these nations are and where these national teams are, and it really made me think, like, how did the USA not qualify for the World Cup? Because they were clearly, I think, better than some of the nations that we did get at the World Cup. So, and that's good. I think for the growth of rugby, we need a decent USA team. So they become the inaugural winners of this cup. And Canada defeated Brazil, so a rare win for Canada. Again, they put a decent margin on Brazil, which gave us a good indication of where Brazil are. But I just think it's great that Brazil are getting these opportunities to play in this kind of thing, and long may it continue. On to the top 14 then. So officially, Alan Wynne-Jones has played his final game of rugby. He was playing for Toulon as they beat Clermont and got a really great standing ovation. And Toulon have really milked him being there. All their social posts over the last 3 months, every single one of them has had Alan Wynne-Jones in it. So it's great to see him get that respect. What else went on? Racing beat Stade in the Paris Derby in another low-scoring game. I was surprised to hear the stat that the only team that Stade have lost at home to in the last year has been Racing, and they've lost at home twice to them, which must really sting to lose to your nearest and dearest like that. La Rochelle got a much-needed win over Bordeaux. Oyonnax continued their strong start. They're up to 11th. They beat Lyon. But there's only 5 points from 1st to 7th place in the top 14 after 7 games, so it's dead close. And what we're seeing now is a potential return to the Galacticos era in France, because they seem to be on a spending spree, bringing in players. So we've seen loads of English players go there. There's rumours of Itoje, like we mentioned before, going there. There's rumours now of Louis Rees-Zammit going there. George
Blair
Northey,
Kinghorn, just before we came on air as well. There's that's circulating on Twitter. He could be going to Toulouse.
Yeah, so that's a weird one. So Toulouse lost a
Indeed.
fullback, and I said oh, thank God Toulouse are getting rid of one of their fullbacks because they had too many. And they've just gone and signed another one. So they've got Ramos, Kinghorn, Malia, and Capuzzo now all on the books. And apparently they think that Kinghorn's probably going to be playing 10 whilst Ntamak is still injured. But it's a weird one for me. I don't think Kinghorn is who I would have signed. But you know what? Toulouse are great, so maybe I'll just leave them to it. Were you going to jump in there, Jade?
Yeah, I think was it Lockie Switton from Lockie from Australia. I just saw now that
Yeah, I saw that.
500. Yeah. So he's also on his way to France as well. So there's quite a few Aussie guys as well, that's on their way to France.
Yeah. So
the one thing I will say though is
Oh,
I don't think it's going to return to the good old days. Basically, where your Toulon of old, where they had so many players from different countries. Because now, obviously, thanks to regulation, self-governing top 14 regulation, they do have to have a certain amount of players from France in their starting. Well, in their 23.
It's 12 out of the 23 have to be.
Which wasn't the case
the
previously. So I think that's definitely I hope so it's not just going to be like the Premier League and soccer, where they're just signing players from all over the world without developing their own talent. But yeah, especially with the salary cap in England going lower, we are going to see more players going over. It'll be interesting to see if any Irish players get pulled as well.
That will be interesting. They seem to be getting a hold of Kiwi players a bit more easily, and obviously the Kiwis are going to Japan a lot at the moment as well. So it'll be interesting to see. I feel like Ireland is the toughest one to crack at the moment, because you're not short on a couple of quid, and you can't be picked for Ireland if you play outside. So, but maybe some of your South African players, isn't Jean Klein supposed to be going to Racing or someone?
Allegedly, I don't think getting signed yet. I know Kalon is adamant. Well, I think he's right. I'm sure he was offered another deal, but I don't know if he's taken it. It hasn't been announced yet, because Snyman's deal is also up. Did I get that pronunciation right, by the way, Jade?
Yeah, Snyman's deal is up.
His deal is up.
Going back to the Sharks. That's
really?
Is he? Is that a pretty much done deal? Is it?
No, I don't know the done deal. There's a lot of rumors going on, but the Sharks has been the strongest rumor so far. I don't think the Stormers can afford him. Maybe they can, but yeah. But
himself and Esvet will do a job.
Yeah, geez.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Sharks is the one.
Pro de then. So Van Life. Do you get the joke? Anyway, so Van and the new official Pro de team of the Pirate Rugby podcast. I just don't get this whole social media game, right? How much bloody work have we been putting into this? I didn't even think about it. I retweeted a Van post and I was like, hey, your graphics are really cool. It's the biggest bloody tweet we've ever had. Van retweeted it themselves, and now all Van fans have been liking and following for a week. It's just it's cool, but I'll share my screen though quickly. I just want to share a clip. I hope this is okay. Shall I do it? no, I'm going to chicken out, and just in case we get hit by copyright. But essentially, there's this clip that Vaughn shared. If you go on Vaughn's Twitter, it's there, of a try in one of their games. And so Pro Day Deux plays on like Thursday nights, and the games kick off at 9 p.m. And this place is absolutely rammed. Like there's a stadium, there's like all four walls completely like you couldn't squeeze another person in, and it all goes mad and things. So that just shows you what the Pro Day Deux is like at the moment. So what else we got? So Grenoble picked up a win. They're edging clear of the bottom. Provence are linked to signing George North now. So they've already signed Tom Francis, who was the first choice Wales tight head. They're now looking to sign Wales's first choice outside centre. So that would be, you know, big names for Wales playing in the second tier of French rugby, which is, you know, I'm sure it will be absolutely great for them. And, you know, if these teams have got the money, fair play. And like I said, the Pro Day is a great product. I kind of wish, you know, when you see these stories of Kinghorn and Itoje maybe going to the top 14, I just kind of wish that the Welsh guys were getting the opportunity to play for these teams that are going to be challenging for the Champions Cup and for the top 14 title and everything. And then finally, Portuguese players are really tearing it up for Beziers. So Marquez is still doing his thing, and Storty got another 2 tries for them. Anyway, I want to really quickly, I actually will share my screen this time and just talk about, I went down a rabbit hole of Pro Day Deux merchandising, so I'm going to share it really quickly. So I'm going to share my top 3 Pro Day Deux merch. So shout when you can see my screen, mate.
Yep, it's up.
So this is Von boxer shorts. You didn't know you needed these, did you? But these are Von branded boxers. For our audio listeners, they're a nice dark blue. They've got Von written all around the elastic at the top, and they've got a Von logo in the corner.
Where do you find this stuff?
If you go on the Von website and just search it, and you just scroll down the products, they're there. It didn't take much searching. Anyway, next up, Provence's jersey. So Jade, you might find this a little bit familiar. So Provence's jersey is a black jersey with a white collar, and it's got a fern as the logo. Does that remind you of anything?
Yeah, it looks like I can see the outright of what is the sponsor on it. That would be, yeah, it reminds you of something.
Yeah, so I don't know whether there's a cool story a la Notts County and Juventus as to why Provence Rugby's jersey is basically identical to the All Blacks jersey, but including the logo. But you know that if you know the story, guys, anybody out there knows the story, let us know. And then finally, Biarritz. I don't know how I missed this. Have you seen what this main front shirt sponsor is for Biarritz?
Oh wow!
It's for our audio listeners. It's Grindr. If you don't know what Grindr is, Google it. But essentially, you know, it's a LGBTQ plus dating app, and it's got some humorous connotations in the UK at least. I mean, if they're paying the money, fine, cool, go for it, guys. And you know, if you're a rugby player and you're going to just be walking around a pitch for an entire season with Grindr written across your front, fine, cool. You know, you got as much right to be a sponsor as anybody. I guess it's a bit like having Tinder across your front, I guess. But yeah, I thought that was just a little bit amusing. So they're my top 3 Pro Day.
What's that show? Ted Lasso? Weren't they also sponsored in the show Ted Lasso? Did you ever watch it?
No, I didn't watch it.
I haven't seen it yet, no.
Yeah, but it's actually hilarious. They also have a sponsor dating site that sponsors things.
You might see Tinder now and Bumble come into the market there and probably then start putting their names there.
Anyway,
you might be on something here, Hugh.
Yeah, I know. So tune in next week to see what else I can find. What else is going on elsewhere in the world then, Enda?
So in the Prem, it was Derby weekend. So Exeter won at home to Gloucester by a point. Leicester beat Northampton. Bath, who are doing much better this season, won by a point against Bristol. They were at home. And that's a pretty big win for them. Harlequins got pretty much battered by Saracens. They lost 38-10 at home. That one must have hurt. But Saracens have picked up a few injuries. Sale are top at the moment, who also picked up a good win at home against Newcastle. They won 40-22. And then Northampton, oh no, excuse me, that was it for those games. Yeah, sorry, they're all 5 of the games. So yeah, Sailors sitting top. Jay, do you get a chance to watch any Prem Rugby, or do you focus really on the URC, or is it on TV over there?
Fox
Yeah,
were
no,
tearing it up for
we
Leicester.
do get. No, we do get it. I saw Pollard's cameo for Leicester the weekend, and the comparisons between Pollard and Dan Carter and Johnny Wilkinson popped up after that. So, but yeah, I don't watch too much of it. If there is the league that I don't watch the most is actually the Premiership. We don't get any top 14 live in South Africa. That's actually a shame. We don't get it. We don't get it live. Actually, one that I would be interested in watching. But yeah, I do. I do catch glimpses of it. It's really not been where it was a few years ago, where I actually enjoyed it that much. So I watch it if there's nothing really, to watch, but I follow like you guys follow it.
Yeah. Moving on then to the Scottish Super Series. So that came to an end and Stirling won, and they actually ended up finishing 4th, but they managed to win the whole thing. So they beat Ayrshire in the final. So fair play to them. In the AIL Division 1A in Ireland, Clontarf are still on top. They had a draw this weekend, but they're still unbeaten this season. And we've got Dublin University still winless and sitting at the bottom. What else was going on? We had the Rugby Europe Super Cup. Black Lions snuck past Tel Aviv Heat, and the Wolves battered Brussels Devils, while Iberians beat Lusitanos. So Black Lion are certainly in the driving seat there. What else? We have the Welsh Prem. Landavry still top. I'm going to ask Hugh to pronounce the
Ebervale.
who got a valuable win over Newport. And there's a top of the table clash this week. There's also, there's a live game this Thursday between Hugh,
Plumtree and Carmarthen Quins.
Thank you very much. So that game is actually live. So there is some Thursday night footy, and that is going to be shown on S4C, excuse me, online.
Yeah, and if you go on S4C's YouTube, there's English language commentary, and it's actually really good. I gave this a shout out in the Friday Breakfast Show as well. S4C's coverage, they get loads of the Scrum 5 presenters and things to do it, the ones who can speak Welsh, or even some of the ones who can't. So Sean Holly's on it sometimes. And Lauren Jenkins, who's absolutely world-class rugby journalist, presents it as well. So well worth it a check out. And if you do watch that game, you might see some familiar faces as well. So the Scarlets use Carmarthen Quins as a place to send their players sometimes. So you'll probably see a few Scarlets, former Scarlets and current Scarlets play for them. And then Ponte as well. I don't think they get used as much. I'm not gonna go there because the whole Ponte Cardiff thing. Don't go there. Anyway, and then finally the Premier Women's Rugby. Is that what it's called?
Premiership Women's Rugby. Yeah, it's been rebranded.
Okay, cool. So that was just me being stupid, guys. Anyway, so Bristol hammered Sale. Saracens did the same to Loughborough. Both put 48 points on their relative oppositions. Quins beat Trailfinders in a London derby, whilst Exeter beat the Tigers. So that's kicked off, and that's on TNT this season, isn't it, mate?
Yeah, so they've got one game per round, which is great. I know it's now behind a paywall, so some people might be happy about that, but I think the main thing is that it's on a big broadcaster. So hopefully they will get exposed to a lot of those Gallagher Prem fans as well. And then of course, let's not forget the TNT Sports still have the Champions Cup and the Challenge Cup. So hopefully they will get some of those viewers. So I think it's good for the game. They probably, got a decent bit of cash from it as well. And just one thing I actually wanted to finish on as well that maybe didn't get that much publicity recently was that Premiership Women's Rugby also signed a broadcast deal with the Rugby Network in the United States and in Canada, which is good news because they also broadcast. So that platform is actually owned and run by Rugby Pass. And they also show the Gallagher Premiership this year. So I think that's a good move for them. So again, they might catch some fans. And they also, of course, they broadcast Major League Rugby as well. So I think that's a good move for them for that market. And then also the PWR, there at least one game one game per season, one game per round is going to be broadcast worldwide on Rugby Pass TV as well. So I think that's a really good move as well. So that'll hopefully increase the visibility in that tournament as well. So I think that they're two pretty big deals that have come on top of the domestic deal. So I think that's good for the women's game. It'll get more eyeballs on them. Did you want to touch on something as well, Hugh, just on the Six Nations piece?
Yeah, it's just a little bit of broadcast news. It's normally your thing, mate. So it's the news is going around this evening that potentially the BBC will lose its right to the Six Nations. Now, I've had my say on ITV's capabilities as a rugby broadcaster on this pod before, and obviously if the BBC loses out, then you'd think that ITV are in pole position to pick up every single game. It's currently split between the two of them. I'd be gutted. I think the BBC's coverage is far better than ITV's, and you've got people like Gabby Logan on there and a few others who are absolutely excellent. So I'll be really sad if it all goes to ITV. It may be that the BBC's share goes to someone like Channel 4 or whoever, or maybe the entire deal will be up for renewal, because there's always the threat of it going behind a paywall. So we'll see. Yeah. But essentially, it's just not affordable for the BBC at the moment based on how they're funded and things. So that's quite sad, really.
And just touch on that as well. Like, the current deal doesn't expire until 2025, so there is time, I guess. But yeah, I did read the article. I know the Guardian did a piece on it as well, and they said, they highlighted the spiraling costs and the fall in income and everything. So it'd be interesting to see what happens there. And also, it's not protected like the men's and women's World Cup, so it can, like, the Six Nations can absolutely go behind a paywall in the UK. So it'd be interesting to see what happened there. I don't think that the powers that be would do it. I think if they did do it, they'd put maybe some of the say England games, Welsh games, or Scottish games. I'm not sure how they do it. Maybe like if they put Ireland v Scotland on it, maybe. But if for England, I guess they'd leave those games on there. I don't know. But then you have to look at the deal then for BBC Wales. How would that work? Would it just be the Welsh games on for free, and then maybe would the English games and Scottish games be on pay TV? Who knows? Or hopefully they can come up with another deal with ITV, and ITV just continue to show the majority games, and they pick up one or two, and we'll see. But again, it's the current deal doesn't run out to 2025, so I think there is still time to sort something out there. But yeah, I think that's pretty much me. I just wanted to shout out one thing, just for anybody who looks at the guides. I did change the name from Rugby TV Guide to Rugby Broadcast for anybody who's looking for the guides. But we'll continue to post our breakfast mini pod shows as well with the guide, and also they'll be tweeted. Anything else, Hugh or Jade?
I think we've lost Jade.
Have we lost Jade? He's had enough of us.
I think he's gone. Blame it on load shedding. That's the thing in South Africa, I believe. So
absolutely, yeah.
So blame it on load shedding. Jade, if you're out there, thank you for coming on. We miss you. And we'll see you next time.
Great stuff. Thanks everyone for tuning in. See you next week.